Well, I suppose we're going back to the early 80s. Previous to that, I had been involved in the folk club in UCD, and sometime after 1980, 81, I met Tim Dennehy in the Four Seasons in North King Street. That was one of the main gathering places for traditional singers and musicians. I think he sang a song that night, and maybe I might have sang a song myself, and he told me about the Góilín. So I was there from the early days of Thomas House. It had just opened up in Thomas House, and I went along, sang a couple of songs, and of course it became apparent very quickly that I had to extend my repertoire because I suppose I was really bitten by the bug, just the gathering of singers and the whole sense of camaraderie. Also, in the days of the folk club in UCD, I was, big fan of, as thousands of others were, big fan of the Bothy band, Planxty. And then you get to read the sleeve notes of the LPs, and it would bring you back to the sources of the songs. So before the Góilín started, I was getting very interested in this notion of, where the songs came from, the wealth of material there throughout the country. So I think the Góilín provided that because people coming in were, knowledgeable. They were used to performing. A lot of the singers had performed around the country. They'd come from the Sean-nós tradition or the Donegal tradition, Cork, Kerry, So I started going in regularly, and it very much became part of my social life. I mean, considering now I'm into my late 50s, I was only about 24 years of age at the time, which is my daughter's age at the moment. And there was a whole young group of us. I mentioned the club to Barry Gleeson. Well, I would have known him before the club started. And Barry and his friends started coming in, some of my friends. Then I started singing a bit with my sister Geraldine. In fact, at the moment, I'm trying to get back singing with her again, so she's slowly coming aboard again because our two voices, family voice, are very good together. But she is coming quite regularly with me. And all my family, my sisters, come in at different stages, So, of course, there were plenty of parties, I mean, we were all young and most of us were single, actually. Well, I mean, Luke and Tim, they were married with a young family at the time. But I was quite well known to throw the odd party, so the singing would continue to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I lived up off Grace Park Road at the time, and, often the singing would extend, And that's often where the real exchanges took place, where people who mightn't have chanced a song in the club would sing. I suppose there were a small group of us. My memory from at the start was there was Tim and Donal. They had started it up, and then Nuala Harris, and very much the people really on the two broadsheets were at the core of the club in the 80s, Nuala Harris and myself, and then there was Barry and Luke and Antonia, and Barry, Luke and Antonia, yeah. So they would kind of stand out as, there was plenty of singing in Dublin before the Góilín. Yeah. It's just that the actual format of a club totally devoted to singing was more a Góilín format, I think from what I've heard, I only visited it once, and that night Ewan McCall was not there. I paid a visit to a friend of mine who was over studying in the London School of Economics back in 1975. I had just done my degree that year. I went over to see her, and we went along to the Bull and Mouth. This was Ewan McCall's Singers Club. So I'm not so sure if Tim based the Singers Club on that idea, but that was the only exclusive Singers Club I knew of, Yeah. So I paid a couple of visits there in the late 70s. And the other, say like Mother Redcaps and the Green Linnet, they had a mixture of song and music,